When we picture gladiators, we think of fearless warriors fighting to the death in the Colosseum, cheered on by roaring crowds. Hollywood has given us blood, sand, and glory. But what was it really like to live as a gladiator in ancient Rome? Today, we're stepping into the sandals of a Roman gladiator to experience their brutal daily routine, from dawn training to the terror of the arena. What you'll discover might surprise you, and it might even change the way you see Rome's most famous fighters. Morning, the wake-up call. The day began not with sunlight streaming through windows, but with the sharp bark of trainers or the blast of a horn. Gladiators slept in the ludus, or gladiator school, in cramped barracks lined with wooden bunks. The smell hit you first, sweat soaked into straw mattresses, smoke from torches, and the metallic tang of dried blood from training wounds. Privacy didn't exist. You lived shoulder to shoulder with men who were at once your brothers, your rivals, and possibly your future executioners in the arena. Some gladiators were slaves, captured in war or bought at markets. Others were criminals sentenced to fight, branded with letters on their foreheads. And then there were the octorati, free men who signed up voluntarily, often crushed by debt, but seduced by the promise of fame and prize money. The first thoughts in the morning weren't about comfort, they were about survival. Would today's training break your body? Would tomorrow's match in the arena be your last? The first meal. Fuel for survival breakfast wasn't glamorous. Forget roasted meats or wine. Gladiators were nicknamed hordiarii, the barley men, because their main food was a thick barley porridge. It was mixed with beans, vegetables, and sometimes dried fruit if they were lucky. Meat was rare, reserved for special occasions. Modern historians were puzzled until they realized why. A diet heavy in carbohydrates built a layer of body fat. That fat, far from being a weakness, acted like armor. A sword slash might cut into fat but not reach vital organs, giving fighters a better chance of survival. So every spoonful of that bland mush wasn't about taste. It was about stacking the odds in your favor for the next time you faced steel on sand. Training. Blood, sweat, and sand. After breakfast came the real test. Training consumed most of the day. The doctors, former gladiators who had survived long enough to retire, ruled the training yard with whips and wooden swords. They drilled the men until their muscles ached and their hands blistered. Wooden practice swords, called rudies, slammed against shields in endless repetition. Fighters practiced footwork, strikes, and defense until movements became second nature. The clang of weapons, the bark of orders, and the crack of whips echoed off the stone walls. Make a mistake, and you risked a lash across your back. Training was brutal, but mistakes in the arena meant death. Each man trained in a specific fighting style. The secutor wore a heavy helmet with small eye holes and carried a gladius and large shield. His main opponent was the retiarius, lightly armored and armed with a net and trident, quick, agile, and deadly at range. Others fought as myrmillos, with massive shields and fish-shaped helmets, or Thracians, with curved blades and small shields. The goal wasn't just to fight well, it was to fight with spectacle. Rome loved drama. You weren't just a soldier, you were entertainment. Midday, bonds and rivalries. By midday, exhausted and sweating, gladiators rested. Meals were simple, more porridge, bread, maybe some olives, but the barracks were anything but peaceful. Life in the ludus forged strange relationships. You might eat shoulder to shoulder with the same man you'd be ordered to kill in the arena. Friendships formed, rivalries simmered, and tension always lingered. Some gladiators became celebrities. Their names were scratched into graffiti on Roman walls. Young women swooned over them. Even though gladiators were legally considered infamous, dishonorable. To the public, they were both admired and despised, seen as both heroes and slaves. Imagine the atmosphere, joking and laughter from one corner, brooding silence in another, the air heavy with the knowledge that survival often meant standing over the body of someone you knew. Afternoon medical care and maintenance. Contrary to the myth that gladiators were disposable, they were actually valuable investments. A skilled fighter could be worth a fortune, and trainers weren't eager to throw money away. That meant access to medical care far better than most Romans ever received. Doctors at gladiator schools used herbs, vinegar, honey, and even early surgical techniques to treat wounds. Broken bones were set. Deep cuts were stitched. Some evidence even suggests they used opium-based painkillers. But this wasn't compassion. It was business. Gladiators were patched up because they were too valuable to waste. If you could fight, you were healed. If you couldn't, you were left behind. Evening. The roar of the arena. Not every day ended in blood, but when it did, the entire routine shifted. Marching into the arena was like stepping into another world. Tens of thousands of Romans filled the Colosseum, their cheers echoing off marble walls. The air was thick with dust, sweat, and anticipation. Trumpets blared. Vendors shouted as they sold bread, wine, and olives to the spectators. And then, silence. The emperor or sponsor of the games gave the signal. The fight began. Some battles were carefully staged duels. Others were chaotic melees. Sometimes executions were disguised as entertainment, with unarmed prisoners thrown against armed gladiators. And while not every fight ended in death, many ended when one man yielded. The risk was always there. A brave fighter might earn the crowd's applause. If defeated, he could look to the sponsor and hope for mercy. The famous gesture of thumbs up or thumbs down is debated, but one thing is clear: a gladiator's life could hang on the whim of the crowd. Night, victory, death, or waiting. As the sun set, the outcomes were starkly different. If you fought and won, you returned to the barracks, battered but alive. Perhaps the crowd chanted your name. Perhaps you earned a small prize of money or freedom for a day. If you lost but fought bravely, sometimes the crowd or the editor, the sponsor of the games, would spare your life. But if mercy was denied, your day ended permanently on the blood-soaked sand. For those not chosen to fight, night brought no comfort. You lay awake, listening to the muffled groans of wounded comrades, haunted by the roar of the crowd, knowing that tomorrow it could be you. The harsh reality gladiators lived in contradiction. To the Roman public, they were icons of strength and courage. To Roman elites, they were infame, outsiders stripped of honor. Some saw them as heroes, others saw them as tools of spectacle. And to themselves, they were survivors in a system designed to use them up for entertainment. A few gladiators rose to incredible fame, earning freedom and wealth. The most legendary could be awarded the rudes, the wooden sword symbolizing release from service. But for most, life as a gladiator was short, brutal, and uncertain. Every sunrise was a gift, every match was a gamble, and every night was a reminder that tomorrow might never come. So, would you have survived as a Roman gladiator? Could you endure the tasteless meals, the brutal training, the rivalries, and the thunderous cheers of the Colosseum? Tell us in the comments what you think. And if you enjoyed this dive into Rome's blood-soaked past, subscribe to Civilization Deep Dives for more shocking, fascinating, and bizarre stories from history. Because the deeper you go, the stranger it gets.